morning, 8th graders. It's Wednesday the 18th, or afternoon if it's afternoon where it's morning here. It's 8:15. But let's see if this will load up and we can get going. We're going to try to keep between 10 and 15 minutes here, but let's see here. Tomorrow is Thursday. You will have your questions posted. Friday, I will do some sort of test review on YouTube Live where I will go through all the short question answers. That'll be a little bit different than what we normally do because I'll be here alone. That's okay because I know the answer to the question because I wrote the test. It would be weird if I didn't. So you need to watch that sometime on Friday. You do not have to watch it live. Obviously, if you don't watch it live, you can't ask questions in real time. But that's okay. If you don't, it will upload later and you can watch it whenever you are available. I'm not sure yet what time. I'll do that. I've got to do a 7th grade one and an 8th grade one on Friday, so I'll probably do those at about 11 or 11:15 or 11 11:30, depending on how long they take. So I'll send the link out in Google Classroom and on a Remind later this week, probably Friday morning, and you can be ready for that. Today we're talking about industrial workers and basically the creation of unions. Oh, I'm sorry, I left off. So that means Monday is review game day in class. That'll be study day for you, and then Tuesday's your test. As you can, this is mirrored, I forgot. But anyway, Test Tuesday is up there. My my recording software, it goes mirror image, unlike the old one I used, which was regular image. So I'm always like, if I point that way, it looks like I'm pointing that way. So anyway, here we go. People were working 10 to 12 hour work days or more in a lot of cases, 6-day work weeks, and could be fired for any the boss can decide he doesn't like blonde hair and fire all the blonde people in the room or blue-eyed. And, I do this every year when I'm in a class. Everybody's like, well, that's not fair. And, you need to keep that in mind when you understand civil rights and occupation laws today, when you can't fire people for their religion or race or ethnicity. That's the same thing as firing people, their race and ethnicity, especially for their hair color or eye color. It's just totally arbitrary, totally not important. And so that's why we have all these laws and these protections. And that is what is today's lessons about, is the beginning of the creation of those people. I'm going to move over here because this one looks like it's going to cover up if I'm up in the left corner. But here we go. And many were replaced by immigrants. And people do this today. They're worried about immigrants taking their jobs. And the reality is a much bigger threat to employment today is automation, is robots. An easy example is the self-checkout scanning robots at Walmart or Kroger or whatever. Those are all replacing bag boys or scanners that work there, not for a lot of pay, but those are jobs that are now not being created. But anyway, immigrants are people, of course, that are just moved into the country. A lot of them don't even speak English, and it's hard to blame them also. Ideally they wouldn't work for less than $1 a day. Well, ideally everybody would work for more than $1 a day. But whenever your options are take it or leave it, and they've got to try to attempt to at least feed their family in some situations, they've got to do the best they can. Steel mills are burning people to death regularly, scalding and mauling them. Coal mines, there's no regulations for safety. Cave-ins are constantly happening. The most famous workplace disaster is the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, which made basically women's shirts, and it was basically staffed by all late teens, early 20-year-old immigrant women, and they didn't have working fire escapes because there was no regulations and the bosses wouldn't pay for it. They also were not the water to the emergency hoses to put the fire out and the sprinklers were not kept working because they didn't want to pay that money. And also they locked the girls in the building from the outside because they were worried that they would still steal literal thread to make into their own shirts, and so they were literally locked into a burning building. And I can't remember the number; it's in your book. But over 100 died, and some of them had to jump off the top, the out the window because that was their only option other than burning to death. And so Upton Sinclair, he might be in this chapter, maybe later on. He wrote about Chicago meatpacking plants and how basically, if you lost a thumb, it just got ground into your meat. Rat feces, rat poop was all just ground up in there, and how and this led to a lot. This led to the FDA, the USDA, and stuff like that. But before all these exposés happened, and before people exposed these working conditions, it was just part of the deal, and there were no regulations on things. And if you didn't put safety regulations, bosses were not going to follow them. And that's what a lot of people. We have this argument today. A lot of people think like people in charge are going to do the right thing just because it's the right thing, and people don't always do that. And so you've got to make laws and enforce things like mine safety. We live in Southern Illinois, a big coal area, and mine safety is important around here. And the owners of a mine aren't required to follow laws to keep their miners safe, then you're going to get cave-ins and unfortunately accidents, which we have had. People I've known through the school, not personally, not in my personal life, but have lost their lives in mining accidents, and it's a tragedy, but it's also something that makes you sad, but also should make you angry, because these are things that can be avoided if we make the people in charge be accountable to the safety of the people that they're supposed to be in charge of and take care of. No minimum wage. Women are paid less than half of what men are, and again, that's not fair. Correct. It's illegal. Now it is. It wasn't then. But 50 cents instead of $1 a day. Well, that's not fair. I should make $1 a day just the same as any man, the women would say. Well, okay, then get out. And there was nothing anybody could do. Again, there was no laws governing this. There was no laws preventing this. And there was nobody, even the minor laws in some states that they had, nobody really enforced them. And so you had a situation where it was just basically the Wild West when it came to employment laws. As you can see there, children are working, there's no child labor laws. The only way you can fix this is strengthen numbers, and that's to unionize. If I were one steel mill worker out of 500 and I went to Andrew Carnegie and it's like, you got to pay me $5 a day or I quit, he'd be like, well, then you just quit, get out. But if all your workers get together and you all decide we're all going to demand better conditions together, then that works, because then they are faced with the idea they have to shut down their factory. But the first, they were too picky with who they were letting in. They were trade unions for specific jobs instead of all the workers together. And so if you were the cigar makers union, which became one of the most powerful ones you would think of, you wouldn't think that would happen, but it actually became a very powerful union labor. But anyway, that's too small of a slice of people to really make a difference. But when you all start banding together and all demanding better pay and better working conditions for all workers, then you could get something done. However, there was no legal protections for unions yet, and so they would have to have like secret meetings and secret handshakes, because if they found out that you were in a labor union, they would fire you, which is not the case now. I mean, I'm in teachers union. The teachers union is not everybody has to get in it anymore, because there was a Janus ruling in the Supreme Court a couple of years ago where you could still. But anyway, if there were no teachers union, I would go in and say, like, I would have to negotiate my own salary, and they would not want to pay me as much as everybody else, because social studies is not tested by the state. They only care about math and ELA. And so the only reason I'm able to have a job that pays what my coworkers do is because of union protections. And so the AFL became the number one labor union in America. Samuel Gompers, like I said here, he came from a cigar makers union and he became the head of the AFL. However, one misstep that unions made early, and they make several. I'm literally the vice president of our union, but unions are not perfect by any means. Several have made mistakes over the years, whether that is, in this case, they didn't allow women, in a lot of cases minorities like African Americans and Asian Americans, into the union. And when the idea behind the union is strength in numbers, and you on purpose lower your numbers, you're asking for trouble. And so women had to form their own unions. And so unions are starting to act to try to increase the quality of life for all of their members. In Chicago, 1886, there was basically a strike called the Haymarket Square Riot. On the first day, the cops killed 4 protesters. And then the next day, somebody made like a homemade bomb and chucked it into the cops. And then the second day, there was basically just a full scale riot between the striking workers and the police. 4 strikers were killed the first day, and a bunch of police and of striking workers were killed on the second day. And so you can see here, Carnegie's famously hired not only non-union workers to replace his workers, but also security guards to protect the non-union workers from the union workers. And in the end, he was paying more than he would to just pay the union workers what he wanted anyway. But the point by that time was just to make the point that, listen, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to do what I want. And so at least 10 people were killed in union workers would often get very mad at non-union workers who would break the picket lines and work for the terrible wages that they were on strike to get rid of. And so you had a lot of instances where, as you can see, as is on here, there's violence between union and non-union workers. Pullman's anyway, let's try that again. Railway car plant. They went on strike in 1894. They closed down the plant, but the railway workers decided to show solidarity with one of their other unions, and they're like, "We're not going to put your cars on our trains if you don't pay these people a living wage where they can make a living." Which is the idea when FDR puts in the minimum wage later. The idea behind minimum wage, and we're having this argument again today, is if you work 40-hour-a-week job, you should have, be able to pay for somewhere to live and food and shelter. You should have a quality of life that allow, there's a difference between that and luxury items. Minimum wage just should not guarantee you that you get a PlayStation 5, but it's supposed to guarantee people that they have a place to live, a roof over their head, food to eat, water to drink, and clothes to wear. Eugene Debs is probably the most famous labor union leader. This is his first instance where he became well known because he was willing to go to prison instead of folding and going back to work without proper rights. Anyway, so that's it for today. I did a better job of not yapping and keeping it short. It won't always be like that, but I'm trying to get ahead and get the test printed for next week and stuff. So the Google form today, name a baseball team, any baseball team, your favorite, your least favorite, doesn't matter, right? I don't know any baseball teams. If you don't know any, I don't care. The idea is not that you answer specific answer, just that I know that you listen to the video and you know what I asked for. Okay. Keep your mask on if you go out, wash your hands. Hopefully everybody has been staying healthy and safe. I know cases are spiking around the area now, and hospitals are filling up. So try to do your best to stay safe. We're doing our best here at school, but we'll see. So hopefully everybody has a good day. You will not see me tomorrow. You'll get the questions, but you should see me on Friday. But anyway, have a good rest of the day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.